So let me start with asking the obvious. Where in people's family history do we see them insisting on the divine order? I'm going to give you three damning smoking gun points, okay, that prove definitively I'm right and that this world is permanently wrong and that they have chosen the path of hell, the path of being dishonest and withholding from God, which ultimately leads to them dying a dishonorable death, okay, leading a dishonorable life and dying a dishonorable death. Their responses to these things are variations of one of two things. One, I've always seen it that way, and the person is evil. And two, they just realized that I'm right, but they're not going to budge because they're evil. So here we go. Three damning smoking gun points that prove that morality is how you define evil, and that the people have variations of philosophies that you would expect to be in hell or in an evil realm. And they're not consistent with sacred morality, and they're not right with the Creator. Number one, the wordplay around rape. Okay, remember, if the idea is true, who cares if this wordplay that I have proven definitively is true? And I'll put on the screen the kind of reason why this wordplay is correct, the morphology and the countless other really proofs. Okay, so rape, E pair, right? Remember, E is the beta, it is the evil, it is the gender neutral, it's the inferior man insisting on being the civilized alpha males or the social controllers, even as a group. That is wrong. Okay, so E pair and also E poor. Okay, they're basically having sex in this kind of gender neutral, kind of ignore morality, non-martial art kind of manner that causes, which is basically like being intoxicated. Everybody is intoxicated with their own deluded state of mind, and therefore any sexual activity in this state of mind, which is a state of mind that can only be found outside of the divine order, is by default a form of rape. You may as well be making them drunk. If you have caused them to disassociate, if you have hypnotized them in a sense or mesmerized them, etc., then the sex is immoral. Okay. Also, raw pay, right, where the E becomes the A, right? The E pair and the E poor is the word backwards with interchangeable vowels and phonetics considered. So, this is an unavoidable argument. Period. Okay. If I brainwash somebody and they start having sex with me, is that not a form of rape? This is an unavoidable argument. That by itself is a smoking gun. You need the divine order, or you are a rapist and you're contributing to the rape culture. I don't want to hear the left or right cry about rape. When you are contributing to this culture, you're basically crying about a more dramatic degree than the one you have. If you truly cared about rape, you would try to restore the divine order, even if it killed you. Also the wordplay that goes along with sabotage. Backwards with interchangeable vowels, we get ego, obi as, A's, right? Or as, okay? So, right, have sex, right? Or so be it, right? So be age, right? So they're trying to sabotage the ego, which has to do with one's sense of place in the world, right? Some people have inflated egos, but an ego basically just means your sense of belonging. Okay, so they want to sabotage the ego of the OBAs, the alpha males. And obviously the idea is correct. If you're a sniveling bitch who wants to be seen as more respectable, certainly you're going to sabotage the idea of that a great martial artist deserves to be in charge or more respected. So they're going to sabotage that, and they've gone through life doing just that. We'll get into that momentarily. Number two, we'll get into that in part two, actually. I want to do this in one video. It looks like we're going to have to make this 2 videos. Number two, the thought process, okay, of mating, and how that relates to pride. Pride, incidentally, according to basically a Satanist explanation of satanic philosophies, is what Lucifer symbolizes. Of course, that idea is correct. Okay, that's really what he symbolizes above all things. That form of the devil is pride, right? Why is he covering up the light? So because he's proud and he wants you to see him as superior. Okay, he's more concerned with his pride than envy, right? He's probably convinced himself that you're nobody to be jealous of. Okay, so thought process, pride and mating. Why not think in terms of the divine order. This is damning. This has to do with genetics, nature, and nurture. Some people, and ultimately your nurture is also partly determined by your nature. Okay? Some people are born feeling the need to have a fulfilling relationship. Some people are kind of natural, gold-digging, shallow scum. Okay? This is unavoidable. If you are a deep person by nature, if you were born with a good heart, as they say, you are going to insist on being with somebody who is virtuous or somebody who is attractive that you're dominating and you can make virtuous. And of course, this cannot exist outside of the divine order. You are going to pick up on that. How can you truly lead them if not in that way? So even if you believe, right, it also goes back to intelligence. If you believe that the Bible is true, then, and you accept one of these churches that have hoarded themselves to the corporate system and the corporate state, the mega church being the most dramatic example, but all churches are an example, then it has to do with intelligence. So you need to have wisdom in terms of morality and sense, the ability to sense the good in people, which is also a martial art trait, the ability to read your opponent and react accordingly, right? To sense his spirit, his energy, in the absence of the spirit, and to outmaneuver him. This is unavoidable. This is not just some theory. This is thousands of years of proof, and the wordplay also proves. It's the same thing with rape, right? The wordplay around mating proves it, right? E-por, right? The rape and the wordplay around that word alone. Not just desperate, right? Day, spar, eight, or clean, see, lean, and countless other words. Obeisance, obey, observe, right? Obi words. So this goes back to, this then leads us to the third damning, smoking gun point. One of these points by itself proves definitively that people are living in this hell. They all pertain to the divine order. They definitively show that if you are not trying to elevate me as the top martial artist and fall in line in this order, that you are in a demonic state of mind, so to speak. You are in a philosophy that is similar to the demonic states of mind, the 7 deadly sins of hell. Okay, and there's scripture that refers to that, and I'll go ahead and put the scripture on the screen at this point. Okay. All right. Anyway, so we get the eugenics and the cultural response. We live in a eugenic society. Quite often we see it referred to as population control and not eugenics. However, quite a few people do refer to it as eugenics. But what is the correct response? Is it this thing that just happened because some people are crazy and they're Satanists and they're weirdos, or is it this is a direct consequence of our society, and one way or another we are going to have a eugenic process outside of the divine order? How can anyone miss that the only way not to have some kind of eugenic process is to have a divine order? There's going to be a process of scientifically controlling the breeding in the absence of true spiritual power and presence and thought, right? True divine thinking. By default, it is scientific. It is psychology. The churches, the New Age, all religions that people accept other than mine, Ra Legion. It's right there in the word. Again, definitive. Okay, wordplay. These people in this country speak English, and they accept all these things. All these religions that they accept in an English-speaking nation are, by default, evil. Okay? Raw Legion versus everybody else. Okay? Eugenics and the cultural response. I tend to see 3 responses. Guilt, a kind of, a guilt which can include the poker face, right? A warlike response which can include the poker face. Or a kind of immature, smirking, laughing, ha, 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 I got over, because they're little sniveling, childish little bitches. Make no mistake there, I don't care if they're fucking 100 years old. If they behave like that, they're childish little bitches. I don't care if they worked hard all their life. If they behave like that, they are childish, little sniveling, inferior, so help me on ancestors and the Creator, inferior bitches. Okay, these are also paths, not just responses. If you're cultivating this guilty path, how can you be right with the Creator? What, are you stupid? What, are you dumb? If you are cultivating this war-like path with the principles of reality, morality, and the divine order, Okay? Obviously, you're on the path toward a dishonorable death. If you are cultivating this immature, smirking, laughing, and trying to cheat the divine order kind of lifestyle, obviously you're on a path toward an evil death. These things can be seen as sins, right? And they have variations, right? The gluttony variation, the sloth, the envy, and so on. These things lead to these kind of responses and paths. So we look at the 6 racial groups, and that includes black people as well, other than myself, right? And I start to separate myself from the idea of black. I'm more like the color of the sun, okay? Without being Asian, but however, I do believe I have common ancestors with Asians and certain Asian types of people with their expressions, Korean, some Chinese, and certainly Japanese. Some Japanese, kind of look more like my father and his father and so on and so forth. Okay, so when we look, in terms of expression, right, Horus means face, and this has more to do with martial art cultivations than it has to do with racial, human genome, right? It has to do with, we're all from Africa, and some people kept a culture that's more similar to mine. However, they did not insist on the divine order, but they kept a lot of the principles. So they have in their face is the guilt, right? It's not the true glory of God. It is guilt. It is sensitivity. It is certain things, right? The difference between Shu and Haru, right? Shu, who is not loyal to Harware, becomes a guilty, sensitive kind of person with this sad look on his face. Why? Why are they doing this, right? When they're supposed to be fighting to the death. So it is also what we see is the look of somebody who knows deep down that they're supposed to fight to the death and not try to find their life. Is a way to put it in a nutshell. So again, the response is a worldly response, satanic. Satanism is selfishness, it's worldliness. Okay. So 6 racial groups, right? The small people have have vested interest in terms of this world. Okay. The indigenous people, the Asians, the Semites, the islanders, and the kind of some of the white people. These are the smaller people, and of course some of the black people, right? Of the 6 kind of major racial groupings. Okay. And of course the white people are taller and less coordinated. In basketball, it really comes out. They're the guys who shoot, like Larry Bird, Chris Mullin when I was growing up. These are the guys with a certain shape, okay, where they shoot a certain way. Now they're taking like Nugenics and other supplements, and the gym's equipment's improving. They have this unnatural kind of way to cultivate a more coordinated body, if that. Okay, so they all have vested interest. Now, a lot of black African Americans are mixed with white, whether they admit it or not. And it has to do with patriarchal kind of, I believe it's Y chromosome, reproduction and the reproductive cycle in this gender neutral kind of psyche, kind of Western, kind of Moon Temple Church sort of society that has led them to a kind of criminal response. They either have a assimilated house nigger response or a criminal boxing, right? Street fighting, right? Thug, gangster kind of fighting, right? Gangsterism. Okay, and we also see them taking non-Haru arts, right? American Taekwondo, American karate, American ideas of these martial arts, right? Whitewashed martial arts, and of course Asian ideas, which is the yin yang, it's non-Sun Temple. If you're going to try to be the top martial arts, you have to be Haru as the archetype of not only Pharaoh, but the top martial arts, Haru the elder, Harware, hair war, which then leads you to the word play. It leads you to search. If you're looking at it in terms of a hair war, how are you going to overlook Igbo? Okay, you're looking for somebody who's more good than you are and is from a more intense martial art royal family than you are. It leads you to the Igbo people. Okay, this is the pressure cooker in Africa, and in the Nigerian Civil War, you had the kind of lukewarm yet sided with the government Yorubas, and you had the obviously aggressive and evil Fulani, and you had the people who were the victims of this worldly genocide, the Igbos. There is no divine justification. The participation in the Fulani tribe, the House of Fulani tribe was extreme. You're an idiot if you don't first look to Igbos. You're an idiot if that doesn't cause you to seek out the most intelligent of the Igbos, which leads you to my father, a brain surgeon who gave, he shows physical prowess, he shows intelligence and spirituality, where he's given this charity and so on and so forth. You're a moron if you miss that. How could you miss that? So if you don't even consider that, if he hasn't led you to me, you're by default disqualified. If it has led you to me, you didn't accept my challenge, you're by default disqualified. And of course, you don't see anyone else doing what I'm doing, so by default, everyone else is disqualified. I'm the only top martial artist material there is. And subtly and otherwise, people have conceded that. So look at capoeira, the emphasis on legs and boxing, and the conclusive direction of mind control. We come to the conclusion that it's